Transmitting to you from Old Heart Radio.
Prepare to have your bones chilled and your hairs raised. It's the WacArnold's Brothers podcast.
Welcome home.
Yeah, I'm gonna just hit record. We're gonna talk about it.
Yeah, I feel like, as opposed to the first one, I don't know, because like a lot of these deaths weren't really urban legend. I don't know.
No, it's the first one. Okay,
I'm a huge avid fan of the first one for multiple reasons, but
yeah, I agree. I mean, like, okay, so the first movie, and there's 3 movies in this series apparently.
Yeah, and the third one's like a straight to DVD, like low budget, awful, don't waste your time type deal.
It's okay, so we're talking about the urban legend film series. Obviously, we're focusing on the particular sequel to this episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the third one in the series is like, it's also on Hulu right now, but it's like Urban Legends Bloody Mary.
Yeah. It's it's just one of those movies where it's like a cast of really unlikable high schoolers, But I feel like, so this one, I feel like it had like potential to be a lot better. Okay, so it was directed by this guy named John Ottman, who this is his only director credit, but he was like a composer and editor. He worked with Bryan Singer on a bunch of stuff like Usual Suspects, X-Men 2, but he also worked on a bunch of horror movies like H2O, Lake Placid, House of Wax, and then also one of the writers. The screenplay was co-written by Scott Derrickson.
I saw that, dude. Like, Derrickson's really making a name.
Absolutely, Sinister was super solid. Black Phone was good.
Dude, I just watched Black Phone, man. Black Phone was fucking rad, actually, man. Like, I was caught off guard by that movie.
I really enjoyed it. It was actually, for the most part, a really faithful, and then not only that, but like,
was it a remake?
No, it's based off of it's based off of a Joe Hill, who's Stephen King's son. It's based off of one of his short stories.
Oh, rad! I didn't know that.
Yeah. But yeah, so
it had potential. It had some elements of potential leak, around this movie. I loved the opening credit for this, Urban Legend 2, where it's like, you got the 2 there, Urban Legend, and then the 2 flips into like an S or whatever, Urban Legends.
Yeah, the opening where like the letters like pop into view. It sort of reminded. There's like a bunch of movies that have done. I think Alien's one of them, kind of like that. So I don't know. There are some things I like about this movie though. Like I like the fake out intro where you think it's like this situation on a plane. It looks like there's a bunch of party goers, traveling somewhere. They're all wearing leis. There's like one guy even makes a reference to the Twilight Zone. And then you follow this like young horny couple as they go into the bathroom. You see like flashes of a mysterious figure that may or may not be a killer. They go into the bathroom, start doing hanky panky. He starts going down on her. And then she notices like written in blood on the mirror. She's like, "You're going down." He's like, "Yeah, you're right, I am, babe."
Yeah, you're right, I am. It's so cheeseball, man. It's like, but you're right. Like, it does sucker you in for a bit. Like, you're just like, oh shit, something's going on in this fucking plane, man. But as soon as like For me, it was like as soon as they get to the whole cockpit thing, and like, you know, the pilots are dead or whatever it is, or like, you know, and like the blonde, like Sandra or whatever, you know, takes the reins, and she's like puts the headphones on, she's like, Mayday, Mayday. She's like trying to fly the plane. I was like, there's no fucking way this is real, dude. Like, either they're about to kill off an entire plane full of people in the beginning of this movie, or this is a fake out.
And we do like quickly find out it's a fake out, because like in the cockpit, like what would you even call it? Would you call it a windshield? I don't know the terminology. For a plane,
right? Like,
I should ask my stepbrother because he's a pilot. But
fair enough. We'll call it the plane windshield. We'll call it the windshield for now.
Yeah, the windshield. This is kind of like the time where you were like messing up all of the like fishing terminology. but yeah, all of a sudden this guy's face pops up, and he's like, "Cut!" And that character's name is Toby, and you quickly learn that we're on a film set.
Yeah.
Sandra gets pretty much lambasted by everybody for her terrible acting. Vanessa, who is played by Eva Mendes, you know, gets called out for having the boom mic in the shot, which. So there are a couple like cool, like, because there has been movies where like if you pay close attention, you can sometimes see like a boom mic in the shot, you know, or some sort of error. So,
dude, I mean, like, I remember. I mean, this is so random, but I remember seeing Signs in the movie theater, the M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Oh yeah.
And when it came out, one, that movie freaked me the fuck out, because like aliens were always like a thing where I was just like, oh my god, dude, like they're just gonna come down and fucking get us. But like I swear to God, like I kept seeing like in the corner of the screen in one scene like this like mic kind of like dipping down. And like it happens, man. And like it happens in low budget, it happens in big budget movies sometimes. Like it's just, anyway.
There's a great line though where the guy that's like playing the killer, like in the movie within a movie, talks to Toby, and he's like, that woman's acting would be wretched in a porno or something like that. So yeah, they're just like Sandra's. Oh, and by the way, Sandra, she was in a movie we did. The character that plays her name's Jessica Koffel. She was in Valentine, which we did recently. But yeah, you know, so we seem to, like we said, they're on a making a movie, and it's time for take 41. Then we cut to what looks like a college campus, and we're in the film department. And later in the movie, there's like a quick flash of like a plaque on the wall, and apparently this is the Orson Welles Film Complex.
Oh, very prestigious indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and it's like, you know, like you said, you sort of drift into like a classroom scene, you know, in a way or whatever, where they're like, you know, you get introduced to, you know, a couple other characters, like one of the professors. Well, two of the professors really. Like one of them's like the old man sleeping. He's kind of inconsequential. But
I forget that you know, in that opening scene, we don't learn her name yet, but we also get introduced to Amy and Graham. You know, we kind of quickly get introduced to a bunch of different. But like you said, we get introduced to the Professor Solomon, and they have like a group of these directors that are there for his speech. Yeah. And what are they? What is he kind of talking about? Like, what's the whole point of the scene?
Well, I mean, they're discussing like kind of like they discuss a few things, but like one of the things they kind of like they're talking about is like the Hitchcock Award. That, you know, is like apparently like a really prestigious thing for the school.
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of interesting because you're sort of led to believe that that's going to be perhaps like a motivator, you know, in a way, like,
right.
You know, but you know, you also like it's kind of funny because they really just build up like one of the other people on the stage besides the professor is like this, you know, like somebody they introduce is like he's worked in over 50 films and stuff, so you get this vibe that like they're really it seems like it's a good school, like you know what I mean, like
absolutely.
and so you got to be like top notch to be there. But I can't remember the name of the character. There's like one character who's like, it's like the guy with the long hair, like the beard.
I don't think they never say his name, but they just portray him as like this creepy guy throughout the movie because he's like chilling in the rafters. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and so it's like, you kind of have these like a little bit of a bait there where it's like, is this guy gonna be some sort of sinister figure?
Right, because we learned that the Hitchcock Award, whoever wins it not only gets a $15,000 cash stipend, but it's kind of like a springboard to Hollywood success and fame. So everybody wants to win. I mean. Well, yeah,
for sure. But like from there, you kind of, there's this like, I mean, there's a scene where then like Amy, is seen like out, it's outside, it's kind of stormy.
What's interesting about this scene?
What?
It's not really interesting for this movie, but apparently, so she's walking through and there's like a storm. There's like a snowstorm. So this is kind of like an ironic type of thing. So they had no idea that the snowstorm was going to happen. But in the first movie, the reason the killer's wearing a parka, the parka is because it was supposed to be centered around snow and winter, and wherever they were filming had a light winter and totally threw off that element of the film, but they kept the killer in a parka. So it's just a little ironic that in this movie there happens to be a snowstorm.
Yeah, dude, for real. That's wild, actually. Because but this is like where you get introduced to basically the legacy character of the Urban Legend franchise, right?
Yeah.
Like, so
it's a good character.
She is. Amy is, walking and gets, called over to this car, and it turns out it's fucking Reese, the security, head chief of security or whatever from the first movie.
Yeah,
which is so random. Like, it's just so. I mean, I think it's great that they connected it in some sort of way like that. But like the Reese, finds out that Amy's going to the library. It's a little bit of a hoof, so she's like, "Get in the car. You shouldn't be walking around the snowstorm by yourself. It's dark and shit." And they have this great conversation in the car, where it's I swear I thought this was a thing that was going to pop up later in the movie, but Amy points out that Reese has this lion on the dashboard, and she's like, "You ever hide a gun in there?" And and apparently it's like this direct link to like a Pam Grier, early on movie where that was a thing that what happened in the movie. And so you find out Reese is a huge Pam Grier fan, but then as they continue driving, Reese sort of basically describes like the events of the first movie.
Yeah, because
cool.
Because Amy's talking about how she's having a hard time coming up with her thesis film, and Reese is like, "Well, I got a story for you."
Yeah,
and kind of like basically kind of like fills us in on what happened, after the first movie, which is apparently the college tried to cover it up, and she didn't want to follow along with their plans for that, and so she got fired, and apparently has had a hard time finding a job until she landed this entry-level security job, as she puts it. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it was kind of wild. Like, I was like, "Oh shit, dude! They're actually like." I didn't expect them to fully like, kind of have a tie of any sort. So I thought that was just really cool. Yeah, Reese is kind of a fun character, but
totally.
So this basically gives, Amy an idea, and so the next day she goes to Professor Solomon's office and pitches the idea of like a movie centered around urban legend murders, and seems to be like obviously he bites and it's like, make the movie, and
Yeah, because he kind of asks her if it's going to be more horror or suspense, and then he sort of rifles off all these different, piggybacking off of the Hitchcock Award that they're trying to win. He kind of brings up all these different elements from Hitchcock movies.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so, like, honestly, you almost like think that, like, I mean, it's kind of hard. Like, it's one of these movies, like, I started and I immediately started suspecting different people, you know what
Absolutely.
I mean? And so he was one of them. I was like, oh, he seems to be really into, like, some of these spooky or, scary elements. So maybe he's going to be, I don't know. But,
yeah, it's and later it's one of those movies where they try to make, red herrings. They try to make different people.
That's the term. I always forget it. Red herrings. Yeah.
Yeah. They try to make different people look like they could or could not be a suspect. So
yeah. Well, and then so like we said, like they she kind of gets the approval to make the movie, and then it jumps to kind of like this nightclub scene where you have this character named Travis who's at the club with what's her fucking name, Lisa. And you see they're having a good time. They're drinking Cosmos. They're drinking
oh my god, yeah.
But like the thing is, they order another round of drinks in this scene, and then you see this like suspicious activity of somebody putting like powdered substance in the two drinks that are going to their table.
Yeah, like how did no one see that?
Dude,
it was like literally like
it was like right at the bar, man. Like, yeah,
crowded bar. My other question is, why did they just literally have like a tray full of Cosmos already pre-made sitting there? Like, it sounds like a recipe for someone to do something like that.
Yeah, dude, that's what I thought too. I was like, there's like a dozen fucking Cosmos just like sitting there. They're just waiting for orders or something. Like, what the hell's going on here?
Must be a popular drink.
Yeah, but you also see the director from that you saw, Toby, in the first movie, which I have to point out, in that first shot when he shows up in that in the front of the cockpit, and he's like cuts or whatever. His I mean, this is so random, but he straight up reminded me, like, he looked like Doc Ock in Spider-Man 2 for a second. Like with his like sunglasses on and his hair and everything. But anyway, so you get to this scene and you find that it's like Travis like ends up like dipping because he's like going to go work on a movie or some shit. And Toby tries to kind of come up and like hit on Lisa a little bit,
Yeah, he's like, I'm a director too.
Yeah, the best opening of all time. Yeah, I direct movies.
Yeah. She's like, oh, so you must make a lot of money, huh? Well, how about you pay for these drinks? Kind of backfires on him.
Sick
burn.
What I mean? And so Lisa ends up like going, to go get like her coat out of the coat check. And that's when like the drugs that were put into her drink start to take effect, and you can see that she's kind of, vision's getting blurry, things are getting kind of wobbly. And eventually somebody like jumps out of nowhere and like puts a plastic bag over her head, and then
it was kind of like a reference to Black Christmas. There's that scene where the girl is like packing up to leave, and she goes to get something out of her closet, and the killer hops out, and stuffs a plastic bag over her head and suffocates her. It's kind of similar to that, but it goes further than there, because she sort of it's like some undetermined amount of time later, and we see it's like this like really grimy, dirty looking bathroom. She seems to be in a tub. So this is like playing off of an urban, the whole. But actually, it's not necessarily an urban legend, because this is something that actually happens.
That's what I kept thinking. I was like, I'm pretty sure that this is something that's happened, for real.
Oh, 100%. She wakes up in a bathtub with ice. She comes out of it. She sees a kidney in a bowl on a table, notices a cut on her stomach, and sees somebody like dressed in black in the kitchen, like cleaning off a scalpel. So you're like, oh shit.
Which legit though, like, I mean, like in this scene, I was like, this is a fucking nightmare. Like
oh my God,
like
yeah.
waking up in that tub full of ice, like, you know, like you like the cut, like, oh my God, dude, like, could you, like, this is like, that's why I think this is such a fun, like, effective scene in this movie, is because it is like something that you can directly be like, holy shit, like, I've heard of this happening, like, fuck that, dude. You know?
Black market, you know, kidney.
But you know, like, so like you said, she, like, you know, sees the perpetrator, and immediately, like, ends up like locking her, you know, trying to, like,
because she slips.
Yeah, she slips. That's right. She locks herself in the bathroom, right? Like, that's, or does she make it to another room?
It seems to be like there's two doors. So
yeah,
there's like it's kind of weird. There's like a door, so she shuts that door. A shelf knocks into it, kind of barricading itself, and then there's another door into the bathroom.
Yeah, and she pulls out a really old-looking flip phone or cell phone, like a big chunky one. Starts trying to call somebody, you know.
Yeah, she also gets spooked out by a dog that, like, hops up on one of the windows outside. It's like a
like a German Shepherd.
German Shepherd, thank you,
dude. But when she because you know, like, she gets spooked by that, but when she tries to call the 911.
Oh yeah,
it's so fucking great, because this is the, you know, this is also kind of like a nightmare. It's like you call them, and the person on the line, the operator's like, you know, or Lisa's like, oh my God, I woke up in a tub, and I like, you know, somebody took one of my kidneys, and the operator's like, yeah, and then I got Princess Di on the other line.
Yeah, she just thinks it's a fucking prank.
Yeah, and so then, like, Lisa tries to, like, really desperately escape. That's like the German Shepherd pops up, it spooks her. You know, she opens one of the windows in the room, and, like, tries to climb out. And this whole, like, I liked this whole sequence.
It's probably the best sequence in the movie.
I agree. You know, like, she's trying to climb out, and, like, obviously, like, you see the killer and that getting it, like, in. You know, he gets like his hand in enough from that other door and unlocks the door, and starts, like, pulling Lisa back into the room, and she grabs this, like, sharp fucking, like, razor wire, you know, to try and, like, hold on to, like, so that's fucked. But then, you know, like, that gnarly shot of the killer, like, grabbing her cut and, like, ripping it is fucked. And then as she gets like, towards, like, you know, her head's on the windowsill, breaks some of the glass in the window, and then the fucking epic, I love it, the killer just takes the broken glass window and shakunk, just fucking cuts her head clean off. And I loved the severed head drop onto the ground.
Yeah, like, it was good.
I was like, that's fucking dope, dude.
And then he feeds the kidney to the dog.
I was gonna say, taking it even a step further, just tossing the fucking kidney.
So I remember when this movie came out and really being in love with that whole sequence, because it's great. It is great.
Yeah.
But after getting older, like, because at the time I was like, holy shit, you know, I'd never seen a kill like that in a horror movie. Getting older and watching Argento and a lot of Italian horror movies, you can totally tell that it's a reference to that, because that's exactly, like, you know, a lot of Italian cinema has, like, this isn't eye trauma, but, you know, there's a lot of eye trauma. Argento has a scene similar to this in Inferno. But yeah, it's probably the best sequence in the film, dude.
I agree. I really liked it, but
everything about it.
It set, like, a higher expectation in a lot of ways. You know, I was like, whoa, they gotta top that. Like, but, you know, I mean, it's a great shot. But then, you know, so, like, it kind of, you know, cuts to, like, I don't know, like, the next day or whatever. Back at the Orson Welles film complex, and and it's you know, Amy and Sandra's drinking a can of Fruitopia,
Oh my God.
Y'all, yeah, you remember Fruitopia.
Oh yeah, that stuff was good.
But you know, then they're discussing, you know, the idea for the next, you know, for Amy's thesis film.
Yeah.
And they, you know, mention a couple of other random ass urban legends, like, you know,
like a roach babies in a burrito.
And then like the other one was another food related. It was like a super random. It was like pus in like a sandwich or something like that. Like you think it's mayonnaise, but it's pus or whatever. Yeah,
they're really random, and they're not really like good, or they're not like good urban legends.
Yeah, I was like, that was what I was just like. I honestly hadn't heard that one. I guess that's a thing.
But then Amy starts talking about one about a finals week tradition where at the stroke of midnight, everyone screams as a release of tension at the same time. And while this is happening, a co-ed is getting attacked. And Amy's like, it's a true story. And Sandra goes, yeah, it happened at Harvard, didn't it? And then Amy's like, no, it's actually an urban legend. So that one, you know,
yeah,
is an interesting urban legend.
Definitely. Well, and then, you know, so like, you know, you get, then you kind of see, this is kind of a cool like fake out scene in a way. You get like a little fake out, but you know, like it's later in the day or whatever, and Amy is like going through, I don't know, some of the studios on campus or whatever, and she sees the character Travis like working on his thesis film.
Yeah, first she really quickly walks by and sees Toby watching some of the really awful footage of Sandra in that plane scene.
Sandra is not a good actress. I guess got to be honest here.
No.
Yeah,
but then she stumbles across Travis. He seems to be working on sound, possibly. He's on a soundboard.
Yeah. And
what was the fake out you were talking about?
Well, it's kind of cool because, you know, you mentioned the parka on the killer in the first movie, and so you see, you know, somebody kind of in the hallway walking towards Amy, also in a parka, like a parka that looks from the back at least like pretty much exactly the same parka. From the first one. And
it was a nice nod.
Yeah, exactly. And then, you know, like it like ends up being like, what's his name? Anthony Anderson.
Yeah.
And you know, a couple of like, it's like him and
Stan and Dirk.
Yeah, Stan and Dirk, and they're kind of like you know, special effects like people, but it's,
absolutely,
it's, you know, like they spook her and they're wearing like monster masks, you know, and they even like jokingly like, you know, like you want to be Dracula or whatever, you want to be like the vampire or whatever.
Oh yeah.
But you know, like they spook her. They make a couple like comments about, you know, her watching Travis, you know, because Travis like sees it. And, but then it was like really weird. Like they exit the scene by, you know, Stan going like, all right, let's hopscotch, and then they like dip out of the scene.
Oh yeah, let's go play hopscotch.
Yeah, I was like,
super
what?
Random. Yeah.
I thought it was great, but you know, so you know. You kind of like take that, then you end up, you know, basically they're part of the crew that Amy's putting together for her film, and the next scene is, oh yeah,
because real quick, Amy and Travis talk. It's like a real quick scene, but basically she wants him to check out the script for her film, and he tells her to come by Tuesday, and then leaves, and then we, like you said, it kind of follows up, you know, but with all these different people. Vanessa Graham, who we forgot to mention, is played by one of the Lawrence brothers.
Oh my God, yeah, dude, yeah. This is our first official Lawrence brother on the podcast. I think we got Joe.
So
no, what else? Do we have another one?
We briefly mentioned Joey Lawrence when we were doing the night, like talking about Tales from the Dark Side of one of the roundups. But this is the first movie that's like, you know, but yeah, we got probably the obvious, maybe the most well-known or most popular of Joseph Lawrence, because, you know, when they were filming the show Brotherly Love,
Yeah, that's what it was. Brotherly love. Yeah.
He had the whoa catchphrase.
Whoa, dude, I love this.
But then he went on to do, he had a shitty show like probably like 10 years ago or so with Melissa Joan Hart, where it was like they're like a married couple or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, Joseph Lawrence plays this like super douchey, like we learn later that he's like the son of like some famous like Hollywood hotshot or something like that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Vanessa's there, Graham's there, Stan, Dirk, and Sandra are there, and they're all talking about, what they're going to film the next day, and they're going to be filming a scene that's referencing the Humans Can Lick 2 urban legend, which I always thought was one of the more creepier urban legends, especially finding your fucking dog dead. You know what I mean?
For sure.
There's a great line here, though.
Oh yeah. So it's they're having that like debate. Joey, gotta stop calling him Joey. Graham basically says like, like they're talking about like how to pull it off. Dirk and Stan kind of agree, like we can pull that, the visuals of the dog getting murdered and all that blood with a little, like what they say, like a little latex and cornflakes. Like
yeah.
And Graham goes like, with one call to my dad, we can go digital. And so they have that quick like moment where it's like, they push back and be like, digital sucks. And then, oh my God, this is like a legit nerd debate. Like, where Graham throws right back at him like, well, that's not what your God or whatever, like, George Lucas says. And it's so true though. And then, it leads to Dirk being like, fuck George Lucas.
Right.
Which is very divisive. But
it is a good little like commentary though on how at that point forward, that a lot of people shied away from practical effects and went more towards digital effects because obviously they're cheaper. But then there's always I will never understand why some people would think digital effects look better, but everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But
everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But I gotta say, almost 90% of the time, that opinion is probably wrong.
oh yeah, dude. Practical effects all the way,
dude. It's you can't replace it. We talk about it all the time, but it's like that it gives a certain. Like even just as a visual, it gives you like you can feel it. You can, it looks like you can touch it. Especially when you have bad digital effects, it can ruin not only the scene but just the fucking movie. And
it has for sure.
Definitely. Because
I don't. But yeah, it is a kind of an interesting. Sort of conversation.
Absolutely, it happens really quick, but it's a cool nod to like an actual debate. But this so as they're trying to like suss out what to do, this leads what's his fucking name? Toby to come in all fucking like hot
he barrels
shit
in there. Yeah,
and he like goes right up to him. He's like, Amy, I need to talk to you. He's like, they go a little further away from the group, and he's like, I just read over your script and like you're fucking ripping me off. Like he's basically like I'm the horror guy. You can't do horror.
Yeah. Like Jesus Christ. Yeah, he basically is pissed off because she stole quote unquote his genre. So
yeah, it's so it's like fuck off, guy. But he tells her that she has to go get a different director of photography because he's not gonna fucking help her anymore. And so then he just leaves in the huff. It's like this really like
it's so petty.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you dick. But this leads Amy to kind of following up with Travis.
Yeah.
And she goes up to him. He's all distraught looking. He's drinking straight out of a bottle of Jack, and he's smoking a Stogue, and he's like
in broad daylight on his, he just looks super like disheveled and like all somber and sad.
Well, yeah, and you find out that he just got on his thesis film, he just got a C-, which means that it fucking sucked. And so
he also thinks that he lost his chance at the Hitchcock. And he Amy tries to reassure him that he's the most talented filmmaker, and he talks about having no money or connections. Which is interesting.
And that's, obviously like a thing, because as we just saw in the other scene, that Graham character seems like he's kind of like hot shit a little bit too, where he's, because he's got connections through daddy. And so,
right.
Like it seems, and I think they pointed out a couple other times throughout, with like random dialogue where it's like, how far are you going to get if you don't have a connect? And
unfortunately, it could be true. You know what I mean?
But so she basically asks Travis, to if he has like a director of photography that he can recommend. He tells her, I know this guy named Simon. And they like seem like they're gonna get back to each other.
Right.
On it. But like we said, he's clearly all like distraught, and so then it kind of drifts into this scene where it kind of like shows you that it's nighttime, it's dark out on the campus. And is this the shot where the gunshot happens?
No, this is
that's a little later. So this is the one where it takes you like right into like they're starting to start production on Amy's movie.
Yeah, they're getting everything set up for the the Humans Can Lick 2 scene. We see the fake dog corpse hanging up in the shower, this whole like elaborate set they have set up. Sandra that's right. So they actually, before that, there's like this like little prank scene where they're getting everything set up, and Dirk seems to drop one of those gigantic like stage lights, and Amy runs over, and Sandra's laying there like bloody head.
And then and Stan's like right next to her, like, oh my god, like she just got fucking killed. Like that's what.
But it turns out it was a prank, and Sandra talks. This is hilarious. She talks about rehearsing because she got an audition to play a coma patient on ER.
Just ridiculous. Like, that would be the perfect role for her.
Absolutely.
A role where you don't have to speak, man, because yeesh. But so it's kind of a fun prank, when she pops up, she like peels off like part of the special effects makeup, that was on her head and everything. It's kind of cool. It's kind of a fun little thing.
It's quick, but it is fun.
Yeah. And but like you said, like they're so this is them like setting up production, and this is so you get introduced to Mr. fucking. I mean, everybody, like, they introduce so many guys who like dress exactly the same and act exactly the same in this movie, and the new DP that is Simon is exactly one of those dudes. He comes in, it's nighttime, he's wearing sunglasses and a leather jacket and like a fucking like black sweater, and he's just like I don't know, he's just too cool. He's just too cool for everybody.
Yeah. he also seems to have his own camera that he brings.
Particularly his own, like, cause he's that person. I mean, I guess I could probably understand that, but and then it
kind of goes to a quick scene where it seems like they must have wrapped up filming for the night. Simon and Vanessa are leaving together. She hops in.
You're a very beautiful woman.
He tries hitting on her, but it turns out she's a lesbian. She gets in the car with her girlfriend. And then we follow Sandra, who makes it back to her car and realizes she doesn't have her keys. she heads back in to get them. She starts looking around the set. She makes her way into the bathroom, and we see like someone underneath a red sheet start to move. Yeah. She enters the bathroom, starts searching through like the pieces of the dead dog in the shower, and then we see a gloved figure in black. He attaches like a mic, one of those like portable, like little small like tape recorders to with a microphone. He attaches it to the camera and then picks it up, and then it's kind of cool. We get this like POV shot through the camera of him walking through the set and walking up and creeping up behind an unaware Sandra. She stands up, turns around, is face to face with the killer. He pulls out a straight razor and swings it.
Yeah, dude. And oh man, it's a clever like shot from that, because like he swings it and then you go right into like this screaming, and it's Sandra screaming, but then it's like clearly you find out that they're the rest of the production team is like viewing the shots they had seen, so it's kind of a cool transition.
It is a cool transition because like you said, they're watching all the takes of Sandra's terrible acting.
Oh my god, dude. Absolutely abysmal acting.
Like, Simon even jokes about how Amy could turn it into a comedy. And in one scene, Sandra, like instead of playing horror, she like is like, oh!
She like
and does like karate.
Yeah, does like a karate kick on the fucking guy or whatever. Oh my god, dude.
It's actually pretty goddamn funny.
Yeah. But then so it like all of a sudden that film kind of like cuts out, and another one gets queued up, and everybody's just nobody knows really what it is, but they're all like, okay, what's this? Like maybe this is just a different shot, and it's the footage that we were just witnessing being recorded in the previous scene.
Right.
So they all establish, I think they establish mainly through Sandra's ass that it is actually Sandra, because one of them is like, yeah, that's Sandra's ass, all right. Like, and so, it's a fucking, like, it's gnarly because on one hand, the footage that they're watching that you also kind of watch is pretty intense, because you see Sandra get cut up, and then like the production crew is like commenting on how real it looks, and how like good it is and stuff like that. So it's like you're watching them watch a snuff film, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And they
fucking wild.
Amy, because like in this, it shows her like Sandra like trying to run away from the killer, like trying to knock stuff over to obstruct his path, but she ends up getting killed, obviously. But Amy can't decide if it's real or not, and Graham has a line where he's like, it's classic Sandra, she probably staged it for a real. And they seem to think that that it's staged, it's not real. And us as viewers know it's real. But it's kind of convenient to where she was supposed to be flying out of town to go to LA to film this ER thing. But before they can dwell on it more, Toby runs in and lets everyone know that Travis is dead.
I will say Stan has a great fucking line in this scene where they're commenting on the blood splatter and stuff, and he goes, OJ left more blood on the Bronco.
Ridiculous.
It's like, what the fuck
ridiculous.
Is that? It's like, what?
Yeah, I don't know what that was about.
I was just like, oh my god, dude. But yeah, you're right. So like it, and then so it kind of takes this like this even more serious turn when they find out that Travis is fucking dead.
Yeah, it seems to be like there's a group of people gathered on campus, and Solomon shows up and has a speech where he tells everyone that Travis took his own life, and Toby talks to Amy about how he heard that Travis blew his own head off in the bell tower. Solomon talks about Travis being a gifted filmmaker, and Amy like sort of sees this like mysterious figure in a coat and a beanie like slink off in the background.
Yeah.
And we're like, what's that about? And we follow up, we go further, and now it's funeral time. And we have an interesting scene where Graham, at first Amy asks Graham if he's seen Sandra, and he reminds her that she's in LA. But then he tries to insist that she let him help her with his connections. She turns it down, and he calls her a hypocrite. And we learned that her dad was apparently an Oscar-winning documentarian, and that he learned all of this from her file. So,
he's creeping around her file.
Yeah, what a scuzz.
Yeah, dude. Dude. Yeah, it's, I don't know. I gotta be honest, like, I've never taken Joey Lawrence as a serious person. So just like every time I see, like, every scene he's in this, I just kind of like have to chuckle to myself.
What's that? I just got like for some reason, whenever if this has happened a couple times where I'll get a phone call and it'll, my phone will mute. But what were you saying? I
was just saying, like, I always have a hard time taking Joey Lawrence seriously. So yeah, I always, like, any scene he's in, including this one, where I just have, like, I always have to just chuckle as soon as he's on screen. I'm just like, this fucking schmuck. But yeah, it's, it's interesting because, like, they really quickly, like, I feel like Travis's death happens really quick, and then, like, it becomes, obviously, like, it's a mystery, really. And it's like I don't know, it's like the funeral scene is just kind of strange in general. It's just like, but whatever. Moving along. Amy ends up, like, kind of, she's like on some sort of set, like, in the next scene where is it like Travis's set?
No, it's like the
is it
it's a crime scene. She goes to the bell tower.
That's what it was. Yep. Yeah.
But she sees. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, sorry about that. So she seems to enter. She goes to the bell tower. There seems to be caution tape, but she enters into the bell tower anyway, and it kind of looks like it's under construction. You know what I mean?
I think that's kind of what threw me off. It's like there's, it looks like there's construction happening or whatever. And so she's kind of looking around, and out of the shadows appears who you think is fucking Travis, man. You're just like, whoa, bro, he just punked everybody? I don't know. But it turns out it is not Travis, but his identical twin brother, Trevor.
Yeah. You don't see it coming.
Fuck no, dude. Mainly because I feel like it's such a it's such a joked about kind of thing for a movie or a TV show to do, where it's like, no, actually his brother, or his identical twin is still here. But yeah, it's the same actor, everything, Right. I wonder if he got paid twice as, no, just kidding. Collected 2 paychecks on this one.
But yeah, they kind of talk about, she brings up the fact about him getting the bad grade, losing the chance at his award and killing himself. And Trevor seems to think that, Travis was murdered. He also talks about her not telling anybody that she saw him, and that he's going to find out what happens, and kind of walks off, and you're just kind of left like, what? It's kind of like it's really bizarre.
Definitely. Bizarre is a good word for it. Particularly because I kept thinking, I was like, if this dude's going to be like lurking around investigating this, and like, do you think nobody's going to notice that he looks exactly like Travis? Like, somebody's going to fucking ask. Like,
totally.
Anyway, so it kind of cuts from that scene to more production on Amy's movie, where they're capturing some people like screaming.
Yeah,
They're doing that whole midnight scream thing.
Yeah, you know, what she talked about earlier, which is kind of interesting. Yeah. So, you know, she films like two people screaming, you know, and then she kind of tells everyone else that they can take off, and that she still needs to get some more tracks of people screaming, but you know that she can handle that on her own.
Yeah,
and then we kind of follow up with Simon, who heads outside.
I must smoke, he says, and he
he heads outside, lights up a cigarette, and then we see from the waist down, the character in black start to follow him. So you're like, oh shit, what's going to happen here?
Yeah, exactly. You're just like, uh-oh. And so it's kind of this. I mean, again, it's kind of a clever like sequence of events, I think, for the movie, where it's like, I mean, they basically do the urban legend, right? Like, so like, you see a clock and it strikes midnight, and you see that Amy's, you know, recording some other people screaming, and right as it happens, you know, the person that's following Simon just pulls out. I don't even know what he pulls out.
It was a camera lens.
That's what it was? Okay, so it's a camera lens, and he just fucking domes Simon, kaboof, and like just that's a weird sound effect, and like just starts, you know, and then and just bludgeons him until he's like bloodied and on the ground, and then you think you're gonna see maybe like a face shot, but it's like, I don't know, the person's wearing like a fencing mask or something.
Yep.
And like, yeah,
which is so random. Like, why? Like, that's my one question I'll always have for this movie is, why did they go with that? Like, it's so random.
Yeah.
There's no explanation. It's just, we wanted this killer to wear a fencing mask for some reason. But yeah, because she's recording a group of people screaming. And then after they're done screaming, it seems like her recording equipment picks up Simon screaming. And she kind of heads outside to see what's happening. She doesn't see anything, but she notices a couple of security cameras. So she heads to talk to Reese, to talk to her about it, and Reese, you know, is watching some Foxy Brown on the monitors.
Yeah, I love it. She's like, "Woo, you go, girl, Foxy Brown." She's like, "Yeah," she's just like, Reese is just like fucking dancing it up in her office or whatever. It's pretty funny, like. And yeah, so like, you know, Amy kind of explains the circumstance and sort of like.
She wants to borrow. She asks to borrow because she wants to watch playback of the last hour or so of those cameras. And Reese talks about how she has to make her rounds for the night, and basically, Amy sort of persuades her to let her borrow the tapes, and that if, you know, she wants to watch them herself and see if she can find anything. So we instantly follow up with that, where she seems to be in some sort of like recording studio on campus, and she actually, you know, sees what happened and sees Simon getting beaten to death. And then, you know, she seems to hear something. She gets spooked out from her own reflection, and then because she's like on one side of this glass, and from the other side of glass, this figure pops up wearing like one of those masks that Stan and Dirk had from earlier. So she thinks it's Stan at first, you know what I mean? She's like, this isn't funny. She locks the door on the person, and we quickly learn that it's not Stan, because the person uses the mic stand to break the glass, and then they're wearing the fencing mask, and you're like, oh shit.
The ever menacing fencing mask.
Yeah, it's so random, dude.
I feel like with like a different application, perhaps in like some like you know, like I don't know, maybe in just like a different killer movie, you know, it might be a little more menacing. And here it kind of like, falls flat on its face.
It would have made more sense. Apparently there's this 80s horror movie where a group of kids that are like preparing for the Olympics get killed off. So that would make more sense. Where it was,
okay,
you know, that's which I've always wanted to seek down and see. But the one thing that'll always irritate me about this movie is that there's a killer in a fencing mask, but there's not one single kill where he kills someone with a fencing sword.
Dude.
Like, why wouldn't they have done that? You know what I mean?
Complete missed opportunity here, man.
Yeah. But anyway, so long story short, you know,
Amy kind of like ends up taking an extinguisher and like busting like the light, like the power box or whatever, you know, in the building, and like killing all the lights, and like starts hiding out. You know, the killer is in pursuit for sure. Which is just kind of, I don't know, it's just it reminds me of God, dude, that scene. Oh my God, what movie am I fucking thinking of? I might be just with the first Urban Legend. Anyway, whatever. It doesn't matter.
What scene? What are you talking about?
Well, there's like I can't remember. I feel like we were just like fairly recently talking about a movie, or maybe it was when I watched Urban Legend recently. I can't remember, but where like a character is like basically like in a studio like this, and like
that happens in the first Urban Legend.
That is okay.
It's Tara Reid's character that's like,
oh my God, yeah, Jesus Christ, who screams for like the entirety of the whole scene. It's so annoying, but it reminded me of that a little bit.
Absolutely, it's a nice little callback because long story short, that chase scene ensues. She makes it outside and seems to run through this like nearby wooded area. She runs down a staircase onto some docks. She trips over some oars, drops the recording, and falls into the water, which would fucking suck because it's like winter. It'd be freezing fucking cold. And then she kind of hides like under this grate. The killer, it's a cool shot where she's like hiding under this grate, and the killer steps up onto the grate, and she can't tell if the killer can see her or not. So she starts running under this like it's like a maintenance hall. It's interesting. It's kind of a weird setup, and you know, she's running down this maintenance hall. There's like shots of her running through the maintenance hall, and then it would cut to a shot of the killer walking through the wooded area. But then she ends up running into Reese, who you know, seemed to have noticed the activity on a camera, and offers to give Amy a ride home so she can get out of her wet clothes.
Yeah, which, I mean, and this is a great moment because, you know, you don't think that Reese is going to be the killer most, you know, but this is like a moment where you do sort of like have a brief, like, why was Reese really down there?
Yeah,
you
and
know?
how's she there so quickly? Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah. That shot that you were talking about where Amy's looking up at the killer and the killer is like looking, what you think is looking down in the grate or whatever, is kind of also another really cool sort of shot, because that would be such a terrifying moment.
Absolutely.
You know, like, are they like, do they see me? Like, oh my fuck. But yeah, so you're right. Like Reese I feel like whenever Reese shows up, you get a bit of a, you know, a reprieve. You're like, okay, the character's safe for a moment. Reese was here.
Yeah.
So,
it's true.
Yeah. So this, you know, like you said, like kind of Reese gets Amy, you know, home. She does notice the, like, you know, like like in the studio or whatever, like the fucked up, you know, how it's like, you know, the glass was broken, all that shit. And so it's like, you know, it's all got to be on Reese's radar. But
yeah, because that's right, because she tells Reese about losing the tape and how, you know, now there's no proof of you know, that Reese, without the proof, Reese is basically like, oh, they're just gonna think it's vandalism.
Yeah.
But you know, she sees the aftermath, and it just shows this quick shot where the camera like pans to a picture of her face with her like quizzically looking on, like, you know, her having known what happened in a similar like you just mentioned that scene with Tara Reid from the first movie, where it's kind of like a similar situation to where she's probably now thinking like maybe there is something going on, you know what I mean?
Definitely. And so all this leads to Amy, I believe, calling Trevor, not Travis,
She calls Travis's and leaves a message on his machine, hoping that Trevor is there.
Yeah. And so they end up having like a little clandestine meeting, and this is where like Amy, I think is the one that's like I'm gonna tell the police, I think Trevor kind of tries to like dissuade her from the idea.
Yeah, he talks about having a bad relationship with authorities. You're like, okay.
Yeah. All right, bad boy. Yeah. I wish I could describe it like, I have a bad relationship with authorities, mainly because I'm cool.
But yeah, she talks about Simon being dead. She thinks Sandra was killed, and she also brings up the Hitchcock Award. And Trevor, is like, you think someone would kill for that? So, yeah. He then asks her where her shoot is tomorrow night, and we learn that it's going to be at a theme park outside of town. And he seems to think that the person is going to come after her again, and that this is her chance to draw him out and discover who the killer is, and that he's not going to let anything happen to her. So.
Oh yeah, the classic. You're safe when you're with me, baby.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Oh man, and then there's this kind of there's a scene where from there, like it's like Amy's like running in the woods, going on a jog, and in between shots of her running, you have these shots of her friends and other people on her movie crew. They're kind of like their faces are sort of getting like hyperimposed over the imagery of the fencing masked killer. Yeah. And it's actually kind of a cool sort of series of shots, and so it shows like that she's like everybody's in question and suspect.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Which would be, I mean, like legitimately, like, at this point, you would have to feel like it could be anybody. But one of the best parts is it shows like Stan's face hyperimposed, and then you have like the words from earlier, like latex and cornflakes kind of gets which, like, to be honest, I think that'd be just like a really great album name for no reason, just latex and cornflakes.
Oh my god.
But
then we have a quick scene where they're like in class, and Solomon asks what Amy's working on, and she's working on like a picture of the Tunnel of Terror, and then we go to that. So we're now at this apparently like an old rundown carnival, and they're going to turn a ride called Merry Miners into the Tunnel of Terror. Durkin's standing there with a bunch of props. And they head in to sort of turn this like kind of hokey, whimsical tunnel ride into a horror ride. And there is actually one cool scene where there's like, because it shows part of the ride, they go and they start setting up, they turn on the animatronics, and there's just one animatronic scene where it's like a group of guys playing cards, and the line from the animatronic is, "Take a look at these babies," and then they fix the scene up with a bunch of dolls to make it look like the person is cutting off the head of a baby. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. Dude, I mean, I kept thinking, like, during this whole thing, I was like, how fucking dope would it be to just be able to, like, have access to,
absolutely,
like, this, like, old carnival, or, especially, like a ride like that, to be able to, like, shoot in and stuff. I was like, that's fucking dope, dude.
Yeah. And then we see, like, Graham is there with a bunch of people that kind of, they think that Simon flaked. Amy sees Trevor hiding in the woods, and then she tells Vanessa and the crew to go get something to eat and come back in an hour, leaving Amy, Dirk, and Stan there.
Yeah. And I like Dirk and Stan. Like, they're two of my favorite, like, random characters in this movie.
Yeah, they're effects guys. Of course.
And so, like, it's one of those, like, leading up to this, you're just like, oh no, something's
where
happen.
it's leading. Absolutely.
And so, you know, like those two and Amy, like you said, they're kind of like, you know, dusting it, like getting everything else set up and making sure everything's running.
Yeah, Amy wants to do a run through.
So she hops in one of the little like carts on the track and like starts going through it.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, like as she's doing that, you have this, you know, shot where Stan is working on something, and you have that like you know, in kind of dressed like the miner, like one of the miners, you know, animatronics, but still with the full fencing mask. Like you see like the shot of the killer like turn around.
Yeah, it's
so
wearing
cheesy.
wearing like a wig and a hat, trying to like pose.
Yeah.
So I'm glad they put
the wig on over. I just like to think about that. They put the wig on over their fencing mask, like on top of their fencing mask.
I'm glad that they took it off because I thought that they were gonna like,
oh god,
wear that for the remainder of the scene. But yeah. So like you said, you know, we see that the killer's there. He picks up a pickaxe. He smashes Stan over the head with it, kind of knocking Stan down to where Stan is like holding on to some sort of handrail.
Oh my god, dude. Yeah.
The killer then severs an electrical cord and then takes the electrical cord and places the end on the guardrail, electrocuting and killing Stan. It's pretty lackluster.
It really is.
Kill.
I want to mention, you want to talk about bad digital effects? The electricity zapping Stan is a really bad digital effect.
How ironic, huh?
Yeah, dude, for real. I loved it. But you're right, like it was kind of like a bit of a lackluster kill. And then you know, the killer ends up turning their sights onto Dirk, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And like Dirk's like, you know, he's like climbing up a ladder or something like that when he notices the killer above. And this is where you're saying, like, at this point the killer's taken off the disguise for the most part, and takes that same pickaxe that they domed Stan with and like smashes Dirk's hand, and causes him to like, you know, basically fall. And anyway, you know, this is like, you know, the killer's in pursuit of Dirk. And like Dirk also gets kind of killed with like electricity adjacent, right? Like,
yeah, because he gets thrown into the like electrical box.
Yeah. And
not only killing him, but also shutting off all the power to the ride. So this, I mean, yeah. So that's where like Amy, you know, like as she's going through a ride through it, becomes, you know, something's happening, obviously. And it's kind of funny because like they're also like, you know, they're making a horror movie set, and so like, you know, you have all these shots of like, you know, special effects like severed heads and stuff like that, kind of sprinkled throughout. So it's kind of funny how they sort of make it. Oh, I forgot because I apologize. Continue what you were gonna say, and then I'll say what I was gonna say. I always cut you off. Dude, I feel like every episode I cut you off, and I feel really bad.
Oh, it's all good, dude. It's just kind of a cool, like they do a really like good job of, I think, just building up the suspense in this scene in a way.
Because the whole point, like this is they're playing off the urban legend of, and this is actually like there was like an old EC comic with the sort of similar storyline to this, but it's the urban legend of a carnival coming to town, having a terror ride like this with a bunch of prop bodies, but then when they pack up and leave, there's a bunch of people from the town missing. So, you know, yeah,
that's cool. Like maybe you think that's kind of like a nod to this whole.
Absolutely.
That's
so. Amy, you know, the power, like we said, the power shuts off. So Amy gets out of the ride. She climbs down the ladder, sees a flashlight on the ground. She ends up turning on the power, and right as she turns back on the power, she sees Dirk's dead body with this severely burned, gnarly face.
Yeah, dude, and that's got some cool like, you know, kind of bloody work on, you know.
Totally.
I think. But yeah, and so you know, this leads to the killer, like, you know, obviously like them now pursuing Amy.
Mm-hmm.
And God, yeah, as non-menacing as that mask is, I don't know. It's like I want to laugh at it, but it's kind of like they do a good job of sort of like creating this mysterious killer where like this person's like in pursuit, and then like all of a sudden, you know, like as Amy gets a little bit ahead, you know, she turns around and like the fucker's nowhere to be seen, you know, kind of thing. And so I don't know, it's kind of cool. But again, as Amy, like Reese ends up showing up in this sequence.
Yeah, it's like a reoccurring theme essentially.
Yeah. You know, but you know, I don't know. It just leads you to those questions. But so this, you know, this you know, jumps to like, you know, the police are now involved, like at the crime scene now. They're shown taking out Dirk's body, you know, and it's basically like the only person that seems to believe Amy to any extent is Reese at this point, I guess, and Trevor too. But
two things, because the police chalk it up to an accident, which of course,
oh yeah, just a fucking accident, right?
Like you said, you know, Trevor had told her that he was going to be there to protect her, and he wasn't there at all, and that kind of leads us into the next scene where Amy is with Trevor and she's angry at him for not following through and protecting her like he said he would. And he tells her that he ended up following Graham, and when he came back, the police were there. She tells him about Dirk and Stan being killed. And then she's like, well, at least we can knock Graham off the suspect list. And then he tells her that he lost him. So not only did he not fucking stay there and protect her like he said he would, but then the one thing he did try to do and go and tail Graham, he fucks up that up too. So you're like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. What good are you, Trevor, man? Oh God, yeah. And this is where like particularly this scene, like, you know, they start building that like weird, you know, lovey kind of storyline in there where it's like, you know, they're at, you know, the dorm, you know, Amy's had a terrible night. Trevor's like, oh, I promise, like, I won't let you down again, you know, like, I'll be here for you kind of thing. and you know, Amy just goes to like go to sleep, and Trevor, like, you know, lays down right next to her, and then it jumps into this like sequence of them just, you know, getting buck, and so they're like, and so you're like, whoa.
At least there wasn't any nudity. Like there's just like a behind, like she takes her shirt off, but it's like a behind shot. So
but it's just like, you know, it was just so funny. I was just like, of course there's gonna be something like this in here, man. Like
100%, which is weird because you know, you kind of got the feeling that Amy, you know, like had a crush on Travis or whatever. Yeah. So now, you know, with this whole storyline going forward, you're like, so with Trevor, like, is she picturing Travis? Like, it's super weird. It's super weird.
I mean, that's a really good point, though. Like, right? Like, is she fantasizing about Travis or Trevor, man?
Right.
Yeah, but then that's it. You find out that it's just a big fantasy scene because she wakes up.
Well, because in the fantasy, Trevor seems to pull a knife out and stab her in the back. But yeah, it was a nightmare. It was one of those cop-out nightmare sequences.
Yeah, I guess the knife in the back, definitely, you can't call it a fantasy.
Fantasy. No,
it's a it turns into a nightmare real quick there. Yeah, but, you know, she wakes up and Trevor's obviously gone. Like, you know, no.
Yeah, like he just literally told her the night before, like, oh, you know,
dude's the worst.
What did he say? He has a line where he's like, fuck, what did he say? He's like, I'll never leave you again. No, that's not what he says. He's, God damn it.
I mean, but that's basically what he alludes to. He's like, you know, he's like talking about like being, you know, there
he
for it and shit.
Yeah, he says he won't leave her again, and then she wakes up and he's gone.
Dude,
but yeah, so she wakes up and kind of takes a peek out her window. And while she's looking out her window, you know, she has a view of the bell tower, and a light in the bell tower comes on. So
yeah, dude.
She goes to investigate. She heads into the bell tower, and Vanessa's there. And Vanessa has this note that is supposedly from Amy, you know, like confessing her feelings for her. Amy, you know, is like, I didn't write that. And, you know, kind of one of those scenes where someone like lured them there, and we quickly learn that that's the case. The killer emerges. They start to run up. Well, he doesn't emerge, like you see him behind, like I said, because this place is like kind of under construction.
It's kind of in a creepy way, though. There's like these shots of like statues with plastic bags around their head and shit. Like,
yeah, it's a good setting.
It's a weird, yeah. But
anyway. Yeah, so they just see like a dark figure behind some of the like plastic wrap or whatever it is. So they start to run up the bell tower. They end up getting to the top of the bell tower, and while this is going on, there's like a quick shot of Reese in her like monitor station seeing the activity. But yeah, they get to the top of the bell tower. They hide in a room, and the killer opens the door, grabs Vanessa by the hair, yanks her out, shuts the door, and locks Amy in there. He uses a screwdriver or whoever the killer is, uses a screwdriver to lock her in there. Yeah, what does she find in there?
In the room?
Yeah.
Oh. She finds Sandra's fucked up body.
and Simon's.
And Simon's. It's fucking gnarly, though. You know, could you imagine that? Like there's there's some shots. It's like it's cool practical effects. Where it's like there's like rats like eating the flesh and like kind of almost like crawling into like Sandra's, you know, like neck where it's been cut and stuff like that. It's fucking gnarly.
Jesus Christ.
It's fucking, I mean, could you imagine, especially like, you know, because it's somebody you know, it's like a friend of yours, like, oh God. And
it would be traumatizing.
Yeah. Oh my God. But
yeah,
so
she like Incredible Hulks her way through the door. She like
Amy smash.
Yeah, she like just like shoulder bashes it a bunch of times and like actually fucking breaks her way out. But then as if not seeing, you know, the two of your friends dead, one of it like and Simon is kind of like almost like folded up like on a shelf.
Yeah.
You know, not only just seeing, you know, rats feeding on your friend, but then she blasts her way out and bumps into Vanessa's dead body, who is hanging from a rope on one of the bells. You're like, oh fuck,
dude. They're just getting picked off at this point, man.
Yeah, that would not be a good time to put it.
And then, so, you know, like this you know, Amy basically makes her way out of the bell tower. She's screaming and shit. She's like obviously very upset, like distraught, and she runs right into fucking Trevor, who of course has just been like nowhere when he needs to be. You know what I mean? Like this fucking guy, dude. But you know, but this like obviously leads to the point where Amy now is like, who the fuck are you? Like, are you actually the killer? You know, who, like, you know, in a way. And he has to sort of like give her the reassurance, you know, it's not me.
Yeah, we also see Reese. You know, Reese seems to pull up and just sees Amy running out of the bell tower, you know, so she's kind of confused. But yeah, so we follow up with Trevor and Amy, and they seem to be at the library. They're on a computer, and he kind of reveals to her that he talks about there had to be a connection. And we learned that, you know, everyone that worked on Travis's thesis film, The Gods of Men, were victims. So they watched this film, and they at first they kind of talk about like how shitty of a quality it is, but then Amy notices what's that?
Sorry, I just loved it. They were just like that, like literally the line was like, oh, that was awful. Like,
but then
he earned his C-, that's for sure.
Amy notices something interesting. She notices that there's splicing tape connecting the last frame of the film to the first frame of the credits, and that this isn't a normal thing, and that it's a copy from a negative, and you shouldn't see any splices. And she comes to the realization that somebody changed the film on Travis's credits to pass it off as their own, and that there's only one person alive from this film crew. So it's kind of an interesting scene where you sort of learn that, you know, somebody passed their film off as Travis's, and you know, that their shitty film put Travis's name on it, and that's, you know, the situation where Travis got the bad grade. Yeah, so it's just kind of interesting.
That led him to kind of get in the bag. Oh yeah, and so, you know, this kind of takes you. It's like, you know, it takes you to this nighttime scene where, right off that realization, you know, it takes you to this nighttime scene, and you see a car driving. And at first you don't see who's in it, but they pull up to like the scene where, you know, somebody's like flagging them down. Looks like maybe like a roadside issue, and turns out the person in the vehicle is motherfucking Toby, and the person flagging him down is Amy.
And
she pulls a gun on Toby, and which is like it just like takes a turn there where you think somebody's gonna, you know, it's the murderer or whatever, but like, yeah, she pulls a gun out. They're like, her and Trevor are demanding that Toby get out of the car. Toby thinks Trevor's Travis. Like, it sounds almost like a soap opera, but like,
absolutely,
you know, they end up taking fucking Toby back to I can't remember where they take him back to exactly. It's like that maintenance tunnel thing again or whatever.
Well, with everything that follows next, it seems to be like they're in some place on the school where there's a bunch of different rooms that are set up for different films. Oh yeah, maybe it's like just kind of like a it's like a soundstage, maybe.
Yeah, soundstage.
That's exactly what it is, because we quickly see like I don't want to talk about it yet, but there's a scene coming up where one of the characters actually like busts through into a scene from a room, and then further on they're into a different like set. So yeah, they're on a soundstage. Toby's handcuffed to a chair, and then we see not only does Professor Solomon show up, but then we see that Graham is nearby watching everything from a window. Amy reveals that so it's kind of like an interesting scene where there's like all these different moving pieces.
Yeah.
Amy reveals that the gun was a prop, and they start telling Solomon about how how they think that Toby stole his film. But we learn here that what actually happened is that Travis gave Toby credit for doing sound on the film so he could graduate. And Toby talks about how he never came anywhere near Travis's film. And then we get an interesting turn here.
Yeah, well, I mean, because this is when, like, the kind of the reveal, you know, it's turns out, you know, it's fucking Professor Solomon, man. Like, Professor Solomon pulls out a gun and just blasts Toby. Like, dude, and I mean, like, through the wall, dude. Like,
see, that's what I'm saying, is he sends him blasting through this wall into like seems to be like a movie set of 3 aliens on a spaceship. So that's what I'm saying. They're in a sound room.
Yeah, for sure. But I was so surprised by that move. Like, it like literally knocks him clean backward.
It was awesome.
But you know, this is when you find out that you know, because Trevor like jumps in between, like, you know, Amy and the professor at this point. The professor's got a gun on both of them, and this is when you find out that the professor killed Travis. You know, put a gun into his mouth and blasted him also.
Yeah,
Fuck, dude.
He's trying. He talks about how he's trying to frame Amy. And then we get this cool scene where Solomon has Trevor by gunpoint, and he's walking him through a room, and it's like it must be connected to this alien set. It's like a room with like constellations painted on the wall. There's planets hanging from the ceiling and black lights, and leads them next into like a graveyard set with there's like a coffin and an empty grave. It's interesting.
And so at the same time, like Graham, who was looking from the window earlier in this scene, is now like inside and kind of like, as Solomon's leading Trevor through these sets, you can kind of see that like Graham and Amy are sort of like, also kind of heading that direction.
Yeah.
And so, Amy decides to sort of like get, kind of divert, attention towards her while Graham's kind of sneaking up behind Solomon. And this is where you find out why, like, what the motivation is.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
he talks about when he was a student that his film and another film were deadlocked for the award, and that a guest filmmaker made the deciding vote, and it turns out that this guest voter was Amy's dad.
What?
Jeez, yeah. And with that one vote, her dad robbed him of the career that he should have had in Hollywood, and he's been trapped here ever since. And then he talks about, seeing Travis's brilliant film, and that he saw his way out, and that he needed an alibi. So you're like, damn, that's quite a sinister plot. And this is, and like you said, this is where we see that Graham is trying to sneak up behind Solomon.
Yeah, Solomon has this line where he goes, talking to Amy, he's like, you'll end up in some lesbo prison while I'm in LA. It's just like, Jesus, dude, this fucking guy. So like, this is like when all the characters, they decide to try to take turn the table, so to speak. Graham walks up and like tries to bash Solomon with a chair or whatever, like a fucking wrestler, but it turns out it's just a prop chair.
Yeah.
Oh god, dude.
Yeah, he's like, that only works in the movies, you idiot.
Yeah. And then Trevor, tries to wrestle a gun out of his hand, and that ends up with him getting like eventually like Solomon like domes him with a shovel or something,
he tries to wrestle the gun from Solomon, but the gun ends up going off, shooting Graham, and Graham falls into the empty grave.
That's right.
And then, like you said, Solomon grabs a shovel. He like. Sort of like it was like a buried alive match type deal. He smashes. He hits Trevor with it. Amy picks up the gun and points it at Solomon, and all of a sudden Reese walks in. Freeze!
Yeah.
And this would be like from her point of view, walking in on this, like Amy has a gun. The professor's hitting someone with a shovel. Like you wouldn't, you would be confused too. So
for sure.
It sets up like a somewhat interesting like final sequence where she walks in, Solomon tries to play the victim, Amy calls him a liar, and she has this great line where she goes, first things first, I want the crazy ass white girl to drop the gun and kick it over here.
I love Reese, man.
She's the best.
So like Reese kind of ends up putting it together a little bit when all of a sudden Toby kind of comes stumbling back into the scene, like from behind, in the background, and oh my god, it's great.
It's so great.
Solomon swings on Reese, knocks her. Reese just immediately comes back with one, like gets him right back. Dude.
Yeah,
it's so fucking
dude.
great.
She's
Reese
like,
just
Mother!
ate that fucking punch, dude. She's just like ironed fucking jaw over here.
Dude, it's awesome.
It's so good. It's so good.
And then we get something ridiculous though, because Trevor and Solomon get into like another tussle, and they knock over this shelf that contains like a bunch of prop guns.
Yeah.
You know, so there's just all these fake guns scattered across the floor with the one real gun, and everyone like grabs a gun hoping that they have the real one. It's interesting.
Yeah. And that's the thing. So like earlier in the movie, we forgot to mention when in the scene where Reese picks up Amy, you know, and brings her to the library, they talk about Reese's gun in that scene, and how she has like that kind of like gold plated
that's
element
right.
to the gun, and that's also because of you know, Pam Grier, Foxy Brown.
That's right. Yes.
And so you see that gun getting thrown in the mix with all these fake guns. And that's like, you know, you get this shot when they're all in the standoff. It pans down and it shows the handle, and it shows that Amy's got the real fucking gun. You know, little does Solomon know. And so like Solomon pulls the trigger, you know, tries to shoot her.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. And that's when, you know, like Amy ends up like, you know, shooting him in the gut or whatever. Because
he charges her.
Yeah.
And they get into sort of a tussle, and she pulls the trigger. Blam.
Dude. And so you know, it's, I mean, dude, what a fucking like wild unveiling, honestly.
Yeah. But we see Graham, you know, Graham climbs out of the
grave.
Yeah, and Toby's still alive, so, you know, it could have been a lot worse.
Could have been, definitely. You know, you see like Reese phoning it in and everything, and so it kind of fades into this, you know, the scene where apparently the school, despite all these things having happened on campus, is still hosting the Hitchcock Award ceremony.
Yeah, but it's about the Hitchcock Awards. They posthumously give the award to Travis, and Trevor is there to get the award.
Yeah.
But while he's walking to the stage, we pan up to the rafters, and that creepy guy we mentioned from earlier pulls out a sniper rifle.
What?
Reese sees him and has this great line. She goes, "Freeze, you psycho-looking motherfucker!"
Yeah, dude. Blam, 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 blam. Just caps the fucking dude from. Oh my god, so redonkulous. And then the dude like ends up falling from the rafters, you know, and right onto a big airbag.
Yeah.
And that's when you find out that this is just a fucking movie, man.
A film set. Yeah, they're filming a movie called Urban Legend now after all the events of what just happened.
Yeah, it's crazy, you know, and like you find out like you know, Toby's working on the movie, Graham's Amy Mayfield's agent now.
Yeah.
Like
we want a 3-picture deal or something like that.
Oh my god! But what's cool, I will say this: what's cool about this little payoff scene is that, like, you know, Reese, who had mentioned wanting to act, you know, near the beginning of the movie, is like the acting in the movie now too. Yeah. So like everybody's there. It's just ridiculous, but it takes it even a step further, man.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's like a movie within a movie
Fucking wild. I mean, the ending is just so great. So like, it pans out from that to like a television screen that like gets, you know, it's turned off, and then you see like kind of a nurse sort of approach somebody, and it turns out it's Solomon. Solomon looks all fucking sedated, yeah, like disheveled, and who is the nurse?
Oh, so it's like the best part of the movie, because it's like established that we're in like a psych ward. It's fucking Rebecca Gayheart, who's the killer in the first movie. It's chef's kiss.
It's the chef's kiss of the movie, 100%.
She has this line where she's like, "I think we have a lot in common," and even cooler than that, she's wheeling them through, and the end credits start playing. It's the theme from Alfred Hitchcock Presents. Is the end credit music.
That's so great.
So
dude.
cool. Like just this quick little like. Yeah, dude, it was so cool to see her in there at the end. Like, you know, a good nod to the her being the killer in the first, because I remember at the there's obviously that great scene at the end of the first movie where she's on like the college campus, she's on like another college campus having survived the ordeal. So it was a cool nod to the first movie. Absolutely.
Definitely, man. Definitely. And that that was probably what, like, some of the nods to like the first movie were and whatnot were probably some of the redeeming things about this movie. Mm-hmm. Overall, this movie is like, it has some like really obvious tropes, like the whole identical twin thing that we talked about. Trevor and Travis, like, but it also had some really, like not a lot of great kills. I'll say that. Not a ton of great kills, but there were a couple that were pretty clever. I did, even though it wasn't like the most bloody or like, anything, like the POV filming of Sandra's death sequence was kind of cool.
Super cool.
The obviously the one we talked about way early on, Lisa's death with the beheading. And that one was really legit. But like overall, like some elements of this movie played like we kind of joked about, like a soap opera-esque sort of like storyline. But it was, I mean, it's fun. I'll say that. Yeah. It's just kind of a fun watch. I don't know if it'd motivate me to watch it like again,
Right.
But like it's not as good as the first Urban Legend, but it is definitely it's earned.
It's not the worst sequel.
Yeah, it's not the worst. It's all right. Yeah, I mean, and then the ending, like we just said, it was like the peak of all of it. What I think was just sort of like the layers to it were just great.
I agree.
But really, we gotta give the classic rating. Do you have a rating in mind?
Yeah, I would give it 4. Let's say 5.5. Sandra playing a coma patient on ER out of 10. What about you?
I would give it, I mean, like sort of similarly. I'd probably give it like, something like 5.2 out of 12, maybe 11. 5.2 out of 11 latex and cornflakes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's fun for what it is, but you don't get a ton out of it, except for, I think, the nods to the original movie. Those really go a long way with this.
I agree.
The fencing mask killer was just sort of strange. I mean, at one point in that final sequence, you do see what I suppose is the fencing mask that was being worn, kind of dangling on one of the prop shelves. So you're like, okay, it was just a prop in one of the, on set or whatever, Yeah, it was all right. I almost kind of want to watch the third one just to say I've watched all 3 of them, but I still haven't yet. So.
Yeah, we might, somewhere down the line, we might have to talk about it, but it's pretty bad.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Either way, I wanted to mention, listeners, episode 61 here is popping up at the same time frame as episode 60. You'll see them. You'll end up having seen them both probably by now, but it's the double feature for the week, I suppose, and we got others coming up, so just keep listening. It's just just a wild ride lately over here at Old Heart. So
yeah,
but we always say it.
Go watch some horror.
Go watch that fucking horror. It's September. It's heading into fall season soon. Everybody's gonna be getting their spooky on, but we've been getting our spooky on all year. Don't forget.
Damn right. Yeah.
All right. Corn dogs, hot dogs, any dog. We'll catch you on the next one.
Yes.